Hi, my name is Matthew Burrell, and today I will be teaching a course over airway management, specifically the use of the King tube and the endotracheal tube during cardiac arrest situations. So first off, we'll be talking about the King tube. Here's a picture of one. The King tube is a supraglottic airway. It sits in the upper or pharynx, and it is a blind insertion airway. It's kind of in the mouth and inserted. No need for anything like a laryngoscope. It is used mostly during cardiac arrest situations, and it is an advanced airway that BLS healthcare providers can insert. So the King airway comes in three sizes. Yellow is for patients of 4 to 5 feet. Red is for patients of 5 to 6 feet, and purple is for patients of greater than 6 feet. So now we'll watch a video over the insertion of the King tube. Next, here are a couple of the clinical studies posted by King Tube Airways. Pretty much, most clinical studies have found that the King Tube is very effective and efficient at obtaining an advanced airway. In the first study, 25 out of 25 patients had a successful first-time attempt, and so it pretty much just goes on like that. The King Tube website has posted several other clinical studies. If you're interested in that, you can take a look at that later on. So next we'll talk about the endotracheal tube. The ET tube is either cuffed or uncuffed, uncuffed being specifically for pediatric patients. It can be inserted either through the nasal passages or through the oropharynx and the trachea. And it is done usually under direct laryngoscopy, but it can also be done through digital intubation or through a fiber optic adjunct. And it is an advanced airway used mostly by ALS providers, specifically paramedics in the pre-hospital emergency setting. Another interesting thing about the ET tube is it comes for both pediatric and adult patients, where the King tube does not. The pediatric tube is usually uncuffed, and you usually measure the size of the tube by the patient's pinky finger. But there's also a formula in which you find the millimeter of the tube by the patient's age in years divided by 4 plus 4. That'll find the proper tube size. For adult ET tubes, they are usually cuffed, and once again it is about the size of the patient's little finger. So now we'll watch a video over the insertion of the airway. Okay, so the first minute or so of this video is the physician just pre-oxygenating the patient. And now he actually intubates the patient.
this point, the anesthesia anesthesiologist has exposed the vocal cords with the laryngoscope, and he passes the endotracheal tube down the center of the vocal cords into the bronchus. It is placed in the main stem bronchus, and the balloon inflated to prevent it from slipping out. The stylet that aids insertion is removed. Next, he will take the ventilation hose and attach it to the endotracheal tube. An important next step is to listen to the patient's lungs and ensure equal oxygenation of both lungs, and in fact that the air is going into the lungs and not into the stomach.
Okay. So now we'll compare the King tube and the ET tube. First of all, the primary difference is insertion times. With the first video that you saw of the student inserting a King tube, the insertion time was around 20 seconds from stopping of ventilation to actually obtaining the advanced airway. For the ET tube, it was about 45 seconds from stopping ventilations to obtaining a proper airway. So you can see that it is about twice as much time, but that was with an experienced physician doing the ET intubation. So that may not be the same for all providers. Equipment. The King tube requires the tube, lubrication, 50cc syringe, securing device, stuff like that. Setup takes around 10 seconds or so. With the ET tube, it requires more equipment, including a laryngoscope blade and the laryngoscope handle itself, and setup time takes around 3 times longer, give or take conditions in the field and such. And that is the end of the presentation. Thank you. Have a nice day.